Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Thanks for hanging out. Welcome into Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. Loaded up. We will talk plenty of coaching search thoughts and name. Not names, but name that is out there. Can join us today. Can dial up at 466-3776. 466-3776. 800-825-5865. Can email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com, and watch the show, as always, on ESPN, Lincoln, Facebook, and Twitter. There's also the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio. Give us a follow at Schmidt_radio and at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. We'll check in with Jay Moore sometime between now and 6. And we'll also spend time at 5 with Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. So here's my story. Crashed out. I'm old, or I'm getting older. And long and short, put myself in a food coma last night. That should not surprise many. Was out at 7. Woke up at midnight to the chagrin of missed text messages as the rumor mill swirled. Smoke again for one Matt Rhule. Missed an Elijah Herbel text. I missed texts from other people we keep in contact with. And then I went back to sleep and I woke up and was ready for a press conference today. One did not happen. I don't know that one happens tomorrow. I have given up on throwing the dart at the dartboard. I'm not Ted Lasso. I'm not accurate. So I'm just going to sit back, keep my ear to the ground, and hope this thing finishes out. It's been wild. It's been wild the last 2 weeks. It's been quiet until the old levee broke a couple Thursdays ago. And the name that is back, the name that is talked about with private jets and flights and connecting the dots is Matt Rhule. And just to reiterate Matt Rhule, we talked to Paul Meyerberg way back when. Is this a month ago to the day?
A little over a month. It was October 11th.
Okay, October 11th. Matt Rhule fired October 10th.
Yes.
Monday show, Tuesday show. Paul Meyerberg, who, listen, Paul has done great work for a long time with USA Today College football. See him at Big Ten Media Days. And Paul has, because he's a national writer, had a chance to, wow, this is a pretty interesting national story going on in Philadelphia with Temple and a guy named Matt Rhule, an old Penn State player. Wow, he jumped from Temple to Baylor and did some pretty impressive things from 1-11 to 11 wins. Then he gets the knock for a boatload of money to the NFL, and it didn't work. I've always been pro-Rhule. I've been pro-Aranda. I've been pro-Leipold. I've been pro-Mickey. I think there's a lot of Kleiman. I think there's a ton of really good candidates out there. I think there's a few that are in position to take this job, and there's even fewer in position to do this job the way it needs to be done, so we're not back here 3, 4, 5 years later. And I think Matt Rhule is one of those guys, and I said it a month ago. I said it 3 weeks ago. I'm saying it again today. And Paul Meyerberg pretty much sold me. And what sells me the most about a guy like Matt Rhule, if that indeed happens, whenever the timeline is, if there's a timeline that's going to stretch beyond Wisconsin into Iowa week, or if it's after Iowa week, is he was he was a fish out of water. He's a New York dude that went to Happy Valley, that went to Philly, and then went to Waco. And what'd he do? He made some really smart hires. And this is very Osborne-esque. What did Coach Osborne do in the late 70s, early 80s? He hired three fantastic high school football coaches in the state of Nebraska. Frank Solich at Lincoln Southeast. You had Milt Tenneper out west in McCook. And Dan Young at Westside. Pretty sure Dan was at Westside. Forgive me if I've screwed that up. Point is you got the western part of the state, you got Lincoln, you got Omaha, and those guys were incredible at finding kids in the 500-mile radius or New Jersey or in Binkelman. They did a wonderful job of getting in-state and out-of-state, and they, true to their eyes, right? They saw linemen that had really good feet. They saw tough kids. They saw athletes. They coached them up. They developed. They built for depth. And you get that's what Rhule did, is he went out and he hired a couple of high school coaches from the state of Texas. And here's what Paul Meyerberg had to say. Maybe you've seen it on Twitter. It's part of what's trending. We're pretty proud of that at Hail Varsity Radio.
Un momento.
Okay. 1 minute and action. And action.
And which cut do you want?
Let's talk about the high school coaches.
Let's talk about the high school coach. I had the wrong cut pulled up. That's on me.
You're fine. No,
That's
you're good.
on me.
My fault. I audibled. Nobody heard it. And we're going to go with the high school coaches. To me, that's it. That's can you come to an unfamiliar place, make ends, and it was very important to recruit the state of Texas.
But just from the pure X's and O's and personnel, there are similarities in terms of what he needs to do to rebuild Nebraska's pipeline of the offensive line, to rebuild a sense of toughness and physicality that's been missing from the program for about a decade. Those are things that I believe he's really equipped to improve right away. And more so than that, I just feel like his ability to connect with people, to connect with players, may not have suited him well on the NFL level, where it's a very different environment, a different day-to-day work grind, a different sort of conversation that you have daily with players compared to college players. But I do think that what he does really well is build that rapport and build that sort of continuity of intent, continuity of purpose. In Texas, for example, I can tell you 3 or 4 years later, if you polled 300 Texas high school coaches today and asked them who their favorite coach in football is, I promise you and I guarantee you the majority would say Matt Rhule. That's 3 or 4 years down the road, 3 or 4 years, and see step foot in that state. That's the kind of relationship he built in that insular community to bring Baylor and put them back on the map. So he's very, very smart. He's very intelligent, and he's very well conditioned to embrace this rebuilding process. And you know, and all your listeners know from watching him on Saturdays or this past Friday, the intent is there, I think, for Nebraska with Mickey Joseph. I think they play hard, but they need someone, in my opinion, who can bring this thing to its fruition and to its final point. It's not just enough to play hard. You have to bring in all the pieces. Matt's shown an ability to do that at 2 different stops in 2 very adverse circumstances. And in comparison, I don't think Nebraska is in the same ballpark.
Trev laid out his vision. Tough, line of scrimmage oriented, both lines, and build. Right? We've been talking about building or remodeling or tearing down, building back up. And Saturday was a low point in exhibition of just where you are at your worst when it comes to having to lean on your depth. It wasn't Nebraska's top quarterback, and they're going against a fearsome Wolverine defense. It was 2 injured backup quarterbacks, and you can't run the ball, and your poor defense is... It ain't going to matter anyway against Michigan, but that defense is hung in and hung in and hung in. And then your offensive coordinator gets wiped out, and he's still, damn it, I'm not going to the hospital. Put me upstairs and let me get the headset. So Whipple's still calling plays. God love him for sticking it out. That looked awful. But Nebraska's got to build, and you're going to build on the line of scrimmage. Nebraska had a really good quarterback in Casey Thompson. Is he going to be available Saturday? Don't know. But the offense kind of built around what he can do for your offense, right? You got to build around your line. And no matter what your circumstance, you can always lean on the big 5 dudes up front, maybe 7, if we're talking getting back to depth where the backup guard is ready to go and there's minimal drop-off. That's a pipe dream right now. But you look at some of the comments you have Jamie saying, follow the rule. Very well done. That's a T-shirt. Jamie's also asking, is it tomorrow? Jeff wants to know if there's a law saying how long a contract Nebraska head coaches can have. Some states have it. I don't believe so because Scott had 5 and then got extended 2. And, yes, top assistants are needed. It comes back to the Mickey question, the Bush question, who do you keep on staff? Here's the other question, Elijah. We've thrown out and we've gone over 400 names. Who do you love? Who do you hate? Hate sounds wrong and a little bit too intense, but there's names that either hit you right or hit you wrong. And Rhule's one of those guys that has hit me right. Aranda is one of those guys that have hit me right. Leipold's absolutely a guy that hits me right. And I thought Mickey, God, if Mickey just, he has done nothing wrong except manage a 2-alarm fire that's turned into a 4-alarm fire with injuries and lack of depth. All he's done is the right thing. All he's done is recruit his butt off. All he's done is take it on the chin for the program, and all he's done is be positive and keep the kids focused. They'll play hard again, and they're supposed to, but that's real hard to see in a lot of instances if they've been similar to this. So I hope that whoever it is, you get Mickey and you get Bush and you get Applewhite, and we can talk about some other assistants, but those are the 3 guys I think have done a good job, can help you win. And who knows if Mickey's got something on his desk or not to sign somewhere else. That's another question and another topic. But Rhule's a guy that has done this, and maybe he wants to get back in it. The other side of the Rhule coin here, Elijah, is do you sit out a year? See a guy that sits, or if you sit, do you lose demand? That's the question. And listen, you can poke holes in every name. You can poke holes in O'Brien. You can poke holes in Leipold. You can poke holes in Kleiman. You can poke. No one's been perfect this year, right? Can't really poke a hole in Dabo. Can't really poke a hole in Saban. Can't really poke a hole in what Ohio State's done. In the holes that people have poked in Rhule, you've got some vocal feedback that are the anti-Rhule crowd. And those voices say, well, he was garbage in the NFL. So was Saban. Well, he inherited talent and help. Well, no, he only had 45 scholarship guys at Baylor. Temple, we talked to 100 coaches because they know it. They know it best. And they're like, dude, if you can win at Temple, that's pretty impressive. Who's with us?
We got Paul on the line.
Paul, thanks for calling. Welcome into Hail Varsity. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Don't you think if it was going to be Matt Rhule, we would have heard by now?
I would say no, simply because the timing necessarily to do it right now doesn't quite make sense. Whenever you're a week and a half away from being able to announce this at a point where it's, at the end of the season and you don't have games on the line still. It just, in my mind, if you are going to announce Matt Rhule, it doesn't make much sense to announce it now.
You can get him signed now,
you can get him signed
later.
You can let him do work behind the scenes. I don't think it makes much sense to announce it now just because you still have a season. You still have, a team full of guys that are playing for Mickey Joseph, and why would you take away from their week of game prep by announcing a head coaching hire that doesn't necessarily matter this week?
I can see that. My only thing is that you gave Mickey until he was no longer bowl eligible. And now we can absolutely say, hey, we're going to move on. Here's the guy, but he's going to keep on, hopefully Bill Bush, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and it's those guys' choice to stay. I mean, they've done a hell of a job. They're going to get phone calls, you would think.
Absolutely.
You got to pay him to stay.
And I think we can probably afford to pay anybody with all these new contracts and all the money that's coming in.
Totally agree with you. Yeah, it's got to be a priority to do so. We'll get into some of the coaches. That there's some crossover, some names to look at. Paul, thanks for the phone call, bud. Appreciate you tuning in. Two names that are out there. You got Terry Price. He's at A&M. He's a defensive line coach. Garrett Miles, his kind of star get. But A&M's defense has been pretty good. He was part of the defensive staff at Baylor with Rhule. Rhule's D coordinators, the head coach at Texas Tech. They've been very stingy this year. They've been a pain in the neck. They may or may not go bowling. I don't know if they're at 5-7 or not. If they're not eligible anymore, I know they just beat Kansas.
Well, Schmidt, we're running up against a break here. This is much too long a topic. Probably just try to sneak in here. But if we're talking assistants, what's your confidence level that it's going to be Rhule? Not to put you on the spot here, but I mean, I'm starting to read the tea leaves too, and thinking this is maybe more likely than not.
Well, we can get back into the tea leaves here in a minute.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Hang on. Phone lines open this first hour at 466-3776. 800-825-5865. It's Monday. God-awful loss. I'm not going to, aside from Ernest Hausman, I'm not going to say much about Michigan. Isn't enough vodka in the world to dive back into that game. So we'll dive back into the coaching topics. Who do you love and who are you really cool on?
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris at HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. It's Hail Varsity Radio on a Monday. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. The smoke around Matt Rhule. Second time we've spent an extended segment on one Matt Rhule. Jamie chimes in, no energy from the Rhule hire. Matt says, I've heard a lot of wrong for me. You know, totally get it. Because you want who and whatever it is. It's got to be right. It's got to work this time. You are going into a situation where the Big Ten is getting much more difficult with UCLA and USC. You don't know if it's just one cluster or if you've got pods set up or what you're going to be facing. But Mickey nailed it in the postgame when it comes to the disparity that was on display Saturday, 34-3. It was talent, it was development, and it was recruiting. It was recruiting the right kids that stay in the program, and I think Nebraska's tried to do that. Michigan has done that. And while it was DEFCON 2 in Ann Arbor 3 years ago, after a 2-5 season, and a chewing by the president and a public spectacle of, well, Jimbo, we're going to cut your salary, right? What happened? Stayed the course. He's got his 3 tight ends. He is running smash mouth football, and he's got his quarterbacks that haven't been asked to win a ball game, but they've not screwed it up the last 2 seasons. We'll see if Michigan didn't look great. And part of that was Nebraska, but Michigan didn't look like a team that can go stomp all over Ohio State again. I think if Ohio State's good enough, and they might be in their front 7 to stymie the run game, right? Meanwhile, Ohio State's had to win games a couple of times this year playing power football. We'll get back on the coaching talk in a minute, but just my quick observation of Michigan v. Nebraska, have not.
And Michigan, they got talent everywhere. They got depth. And it's easy, I guess, easier to keep those guys around. You know what? You can tell a guy, you know what? We still think you're a year away. You need some time in the weight room. You need some time in the practice field.
Send you to the NFL.
It's a lot easier to stick around whenever you look at the guys ahead of you and you see them winning 10, 11 games a year. It's easy to say, you know what? That guy is winning 10, 11 games a year. Maybe the coaches are right. Maybe this guy is better than me. Maybe I need to get a little bit better before I'm ready to see the field. It's a lot harder sell whenever you're on the bench and you see the guys in front of you going 3-9 or 4-8, and you say, why is that guy still getting a chance? I'm sitting here on the bench. I've been putting in my time. I've been working, and I'm not getting a chance in the field because the coaches think I'm not ready. But clearly, the product on the field isn't ready either. So what's the the pause and letting me see the field. And it makes you want to go hit the transfer portal. It's a lot easier to keep that talent around and let those guys keep developing whenever you can sell the fact that the guys in front of them are winning football games. Whenever your time is going to come, you're going to win football games too.
Right. Winning will not only breed energy and talent and an itch to be a part of the program, it might even bring some patience along, right? And you're not ready for Big Ten football as an 18-year-old or as a 19-year-old. Maybe by the time you're about to turn 21, after 2 good years of development or some role work first, then you go.
I mean, at a lot of other programs, J.J. McCarthy, their starting quarterback, would have seen McNamara take the team to the college football playoff last year and say, you know what? That guy's got a couple years left. That's a tough sell for me. I'm going to go put my name in the transfer portal and see what happens elsewhere. But at Michigan, you know that you can trust that coaching staff because that coaching staff has been putting so many guys in the NFL. To your point, you can stick around. You can keep on developing and say, you know what, someday it's going to be my team. I'm going to be the guy who's better than that guy. And it's going to be my team to lead and take to the college football playoff.
They finally got it right because Michigan was a revolving door of 4- and 5-star quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. They even hit the portal one year, or they shouldn't say portal, but Shea came in from Ole Miss. He transferred out of Ole Miss to Michigan.
Patterson,
Patterson's the guy. But Michigan stabilized, and it also comes down to recruiting the right kid with a mentality of I'm going to compete, and if I don't win the job, I'm going to go back to work and try and win it again. 2 strikes, you're out. You need the Joe, and I know Joe Burrow transferred, but Joe Burrow put in 3.5 years at Ohio State trying to win a job, right? And just couldn't beat out Fields. It worked out in the end. Bill Bush assist, right? So you got to have the right kind of kid that's willing to be patient. That's harder and harder to find in college football. So connecting the dots here, if Nebraska moves forward on Rhule. Glenn Thomas is the offensive coordinator at Arizona State, was the OC for Rhule at Baylor. And there's some commonality with Nebraska offering TJ Fayard. He's the quarterback out of Arkansas for 2023, 6'5", pro-style guy. Had a tweet come in, did Nebraska offer a guy? They did back on the 6th of, I think November was the day. So it's an RPO type setup, and I think Fayard's out of Arkansas, maybe Texas. I'll have to double check that. But you have Glenn Thomas, and that name is offensive coordinator. You have Terry Price, A&M defensive line coach or defensive end coach. So those are the 2 names you can connect with Rhule. And then if you look at the rest of Nebraska's staff, who is going to come after Mickey to be their head coach? Is Arizona State really still a thing? Probably, could be. I mean, they need a coach. Coach Becton's, all he's done is do a hell of a good job with tight ends. Bill Bush has been fantastic. You want to keep Mickey. Applewhite, his running backs have not had a lot of room. I don't know what you do at offensive line coach, right? You just, again, we're talking about situation, and your job's to coach up, but those weren't a lot of kids you recruited. This is what you inherited, so you got to make the best out of it. So Travis Fisher's been a big-time asset as well in the recruiting world. So I don't know. I mean, you would like Ryan says Kyle Whittingham. We're asking, who do you love? Who do you not like? As far as these coaching names, Ryan Blunt's chiming in here saying Kyle Whittingham out of Utah. He's not happy in Utah. Well, he gets a whole day and a half off to spend with his family. I don't know if that's making him unhappy, but it's a nice perk to have. Texas is where Fayard's out of, so thank you for that assist there, Jamie. But no, we'll see if this happens. To your point, we were talking timeline. We'll hear a little bit more from Paul Meyerberg too. I think you can sew things up this week. Make sure Mickey and the staff know what's going on. Trev's, I think, very good at being upfront about things like that. And then just let it all hang out, man. 2-game season, go to work, try and get Casey back, try and beat Wisconsin. Braylon Allen's not had the year he wants. Wisconsin's offensive line's a mess. It's a situation where, they're this is kiss of death. Wisconsin's gettable. Iowa is not scoring 1,000 points on people. We'll be in Iowa City Black Friday for a special Black Friday Hail Varsity at the Marriott. Rooftop, it's covered, thank God. Rooftop tailgate party at the Marriott. We'll be there noon to 2, and then Real Red Reaction post game. Just throwing that line in the water for you. But no, I mean it's a situation with Nebraska that change is going to happen sooner rather than later. And if you go this route, how does Rhule sit with you? Who do we have?
We have Dave on the line.
Dave, thanks for calling. Welcome into Hail Varsity. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, I'm all for Matt Rhule, but I really feel bad for Mickey because it's like sitting at a poker table and saying, okay, we're going all in, and you've got a 2 of diamonds and a 3 of hearts. Go for it.
No, and it's there's nothing on the river for you.
Nope.
And you got to keep putting money into the middle of the pot to keep playing, right?
And that's what I feel like Mickey's been thrown into. And, he's done a great job, but I agree. Matt Rhule is a guy that from the get-go I've kind of thought would be the dude that could maybe do something. And I agree with you. Keep Mickey. Make sure that you keep Bill Bush around, too. But, yeah, we need some help. It's obvious we need some help.
Well, and you need that Nebraska understanding Mickey has, Bush has, right? And that's what Rhule did when he went to Baylor, is he went and got Texas guys who get Texas.
Yeah, but you know what? That makes me think, though, if he does come in and he's looking at maybe a high school coach in Nebraska, who does he turn to?
There's a lot of choices. There's a lot of choices.
Chew on that one for a while, guys.
I think Huffman at Bell West has been great. You got Coach Means and Coach Waller that I know they're not head coaches anymore, but they've been incredible. They're Nebraska guys.
Can I throw a name out there?
Yeah, go for it.
Coach Cool at Kearney High. He always does an awful lot with very little out there.
Cool's fantastic. Kearney's been a really nice program as well. There's so many good coaches in high school in the state of Nebraska. There'll be a lot to choose from for sure. Dave, thanks for the phone call.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Good to hear from Dave. I'm leaving out names. Coach Yonk, it's money. Love Coach Catula.
Coach Gingery.
Give me Gingery. Gingery'd be bouncing around out there, and instead of the East Blue and the, Gingery's probably got some sleeveless hooded sweatshirts to match Rhule.
Right? Is that where we're at now? Or who stylistically, from a fashion point of view, who matches up with Matt Rhule? Gingery's your number one choice, obviously.
Totally. Snow, sub-zero wind chill, don't matter. Sleeves are for wusses. I get it. Some more thoughts on, Nebraska. And we'll get Coach McBride's take. NFL weekend was nuts. Just awesome. No dog in the fight with the Bills and Vikings, but that was the craziest finish I've seen in 100 years. Hail Varsity Radio continues. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Open phones here next 20 minutes. Jay Moore at 525. Charlie McBride joins us, Mr. Blackshirt, on the program at 5:05. So here are the scenarios to win the West. Oh, yeah, there's still a divisional race. Illinois, can clinch if they win out. That's at Michigan. Nebraska really rubbed off the wrong way on them, didn't they? 0-2 since playing Nebraska. They got to win both games, and Purdue's got to lose. Purdue's got to win out both games and have an Iowa loss. Iowa win both games, and they need Illinois to lose. That probably happens Saturday. The Gophers win both games and get an Illinois loss. Minnesota might sneak in. That's possible. Wisconsin, this is nuts. Wisconsin win both games. You need Illinois to lose out. You need Iowa to lose out. And you need Purdue to lose. So Wisconsin really is limping in. Brett emails chris@halevarsity.com. I disagree that kids are not being ready when they first enroll. I was a seasoned veteran, drinking-wise. Anyways, that's a high school you problem, Brett. But it's just being a bit judgmental on my part. Who's with us?
Got Clay on the line.
Clay, thanks for calling. Welcome into Hale Varsity. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for accepting my phone call. Couple of things. Number one, I'm not a big fan on Coach Rhule. I respect him, but I just don't feel that he's had the wins in the top 25 enough to put us over the top. Number two, I really, really am concerned about offensive line coaches. I think we need to open up the book to sit there and get a quality one like the line coach from Virginia Tech or someone along those lines, not only offensive line, but defensive line. Number three, I do feel that we need a better high school director of relations. And I'll throw a name out and you guys can talk about it or just dismiss it. Would be Lou Varley from Peru State College. The dude's been around a long time, and he knows a ton of people. I mean, he is he knows how to connect with high school coaches. So I'll let you talk about that. Appreciate your time, guys.
Hey, Clay, appreciate the phone call, man. The top 25 record, not good at Baylor, Ofer. But he was at Baylor, 3 years?
Yeah, and that's also a little bit misleading because there are teams that he beat that finished the year in the top 25, but at the time he beat them was not. They were not top 25, and I believe he was 2-5 at Baylor against top 25 teams.
Temple.
Sorry, Temple. I should say yes.
No. So listen, more time at Baylor. I look at last year's Baylor squad. Okay, that was a lot of his groceries. I think Aranda's great, so I'm not taking anything away from him. There's two offensive line coaches, keeping with the A&M theme, but I know A&M struggled on offense this year, so that may not be a great take. But remember Adazio, right? I mean, he had been a head coach. He was at Temple after Rhule, but before that he was a head coach at Boston College. Adazio's, and I think he was a guy that was at Florida as an offensive line coach. I think he was one of the Urban assistants, okay? So there's that. I would do this. I would find a way to get two offensive line coaches to go old school, and that's how Nebraska was dominant. Coach McBride will bring it up potentially. You had two line coaches on defense and offense. You had a rush end coach and you had an interior coach, and then you had tackles and interior, guards and center. Milt and Dan. Two guys, two sets of eyes. You had Barney and Garrison. I would go throw a lot of money at Mr. Garrison out at North Carolina State. Get him back to Nebraska. That's just me. And then you have Lou Varley. That's a good suggestion by Clay. I'm not super familiar with Lou, but hey, that's really cool. That's good. That's good to get a suggestion when it comes to high school relations. Listen, I think Mickey has done an amazing job of beating the streets, on the ground, very active. You look at the Malachi commitment. You look at Mickey in Omaha, stopping by a lot of places. And that's one thing Mickey can do. I mean, he can go crush it nationally, but he can crush it locally. You ask Mickey what he wants, how many zeros, recruiting coordinator. That is if Nebraska moves on from him. I think it's I think he will have that opportunity to stay, and I think you ask him, listen, hypothetically here, say Arizona State's really interested in you. Hypothetically, say Arizona State is going to offer you. Do you know how bad they are going to get smoked by sanctions? Is that still a thing anymore? I don't know. I mean, Bill Self just is doing 4 games for the FBI wiretap stuff. And Herm Edwards didn't care about rules.
Well, I think the question that you're kind of alluding to here is Mickey Joseph wanting a head coaching gig this cycle? Like, no matter what it is, he wants a head coaching gig? Or did he get his taste of it, and is he going to say, you know what?
I think he got his taste of it, and he did think if he could do it, Elijah, at a place that is not in turmoil.
That's what I'm saying. Where do you wait for the right opportunity? If you had your chances at interim head coach, and then, you know what, you stick around at Nebraska, and you're part of the coaching staff that builds Nebraska back up, which that's a big if. We've seen a couple coaching staffs try it. It's a hard task, and I don't want to try to undersell how difficult the task is. I think it's very doable, but I think it's still a difficult task. But if you're a part of that coaching staff, are you allowed then to wait for the right opportunity to come along? A school that's not, well, look at the opportunities right now. Colorado is still, I mean,
Colorado's a lot like Nebraska. They're just in a turnstile cycle.
Yeah.
Can you listen, do you wait for your head coaching job, and do you get that job if the optimal spot is, okay, this guy's leaving for a better job or NFL, and then you get a look-see there. You're not walking into a place that's 6 straight years of no bowl games in an era where everyone goes bowling. That's Nebraska. But think about how bad Kansas was at the end of the old Les Miles era. Colorado's in the same situation. They've at least been to a couple of bowl games, but they're a nightmare. Arizona State, NCAA jail or scholarship. I mean, they've not been able to have any on-campus visits. I think I remember because of Herm's little COVID end around. No visits allowed, huh? Let's fly you down anyway.
So there is reason with that in mind for Mickey to stick around, but I'll also say, I've said it before in reference to recruits, and I'll say it again in reference to Mickey, that the program and the rebuild of this program is better than any one individual, no matter how great his recruiting prowess is. If Mickey decides to go elsewhere, I think I can look back and I can say, without any bias, that Matt Rhule, I believe, is more well-equipped for a full Nebraska rebuild than Mickey Joseph is. I'm not saying Mickey Joseph couldn't do it, but I do believe that Matt Rhule is better equipped for it. And if Mickey decides to go elsewhere and looking out for his own self-interests, I think you have to say, you know what? I think Nebraska got a better individual in Matt Rhule in terms of equipment to turn this thing around than Mickey Joseph is. And if Mickey decides to go, I think that's something you have to live with if you're Trev.
You do. And you say thank you. Thank you to Mickey. If he has a better opportunity.
Yes.
Get paid, take it, take care of your family, absolutely. We'll wind down hour 1.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Hail Varsity Radio, and good input here from Jamie on just his take on things with Mickey when it comes to the Mickey question. If it is Rhule, then does Mickey stay? And the Arizona State job. Is Mickey a guy that would take over a gig like Arizona State that are going to be facing NCAA sanctions? Is Mickey a viable candidate at an Auburn? Or do you go to a smaller market? Do you stay here and get paid, recruit your butt off, help bring Nebraska to Rhule, and then Rhule's been... The other part of Rhule is he's a guy that's moved on. See a long-term deal if he is the next move. But it's been Matt Rhule Monday.
And a comment in from Jeff, which I think is, reasonable. Something we've been alluding to is, would Mickey go to Ole Miss? Say Lane goes. That's a job where I'd say yes. That's probably the right opportunity.
You think Lane jumps to Auburn? To Auburn.
That's where my tea leaves are reading right now. Is that
if I put a betting favorite on it, brother, it's a hard sell, even as interim, even as a mess. that Nebraska is. What got Orgeron finally the shot? It wasn't just prisoner of the moment. Look what he did at LSU. You got to 9-3 after less. He'd done it before, right? At 9-4 at USC.
And this is what I was going to say. Whereas the opportunity might be great for Mickey to go to Ole Miss, what reasoning would Ole Miss have to go to Mickey right now at this point in time? I think that's too big a chance for Ole Miss.
Somebody who's had Power 5 head job experience.
That's why I think that the question right now is for Mickey: are you waiting for the first head coaching opportunity you get, or are you waiting for the right head coaching opportunity? Because Mickey is fast-tracked. He's going to be a great college football coach someday. I don't think it's this year with Nebraska. Head coach, yes. The question is when is he going to jump ship and start that process?
Well, what do you jump ship for? To be the head guy, or is it also about finances and fit? I mean, Mickey's moved around a lot, but he's always found gigs that really kind of furthered his education.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's been very smart about where he's gone, and he's grinded, man. He's grinded forever, where he's making 30s. I mean, think about this. When did he get to LSU? You know what? Back in 2016? 2016, 2017. I mean, he finally got to make real money. Finally at 2016. And then, let's bump everybody after 2019. You see his protege Jefferson just killing it yesterday with the catch of the year. Reminder about Red Zone tickets, selling fun since 2001. Do you have tickets you want to buy or sell? Going to go see Nebraska football or Husker volleyball? How about NFL action? Creighton basketball, concerts, theater seats, CWS. It's all on the menu for you with Red Zone tickets. They're located in Omaha. They are Omaha proud and a local source for you. An A+ Better Business Bureau rating, a 100% guarantee on all orders. You'll receive authentic tickets and experiences you'll never forget. Check that item off the bucket list now and create the memories that last a lifetime. Do so with Red Zone Tickets. RedZoneTickets.com today. RedZoneTickets.com. All right. What Mr. Blackshirt say about Saturday and this upcoming Saturday? We'll get his take on the Matt Rhule name floating around. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Hour 2 on the way. We're presented by Currency.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Tomorrow we will spend time with Barry Alvarez, Mitch Sherman, and all the things that the press conference entailed tomorrow with Mickey and company. It's been Coaching Search Monday and the start of thoughts on Matt Rhule, if that is indeed the guy. We welcome in a great coach for a number of years at Nebraska, also at Wisconsin, also at Arizona State. Mr. Blackshirt himself, Charlie McBride. A Monday with Charlie. Coach, how was the weekend?
Oh, it was great. Well, it was okay. It was
about 4 hours you want back?
It's the first time I've ever raked leaves in the snow. That was something new. I didn't realize I was that stupid.
Did you do that raking about the second half or no?
No, I did it before.
Okay.
I did it in the morning, before. I got up early and did some. You have to get a fire permit here when you burn because there's so many trees around and everything, and you can't. I don't burn unless if it's windy. It's just crazy because, it's too many leaves around and that stuff will start a fire. And you can say you can put it out, but you better be fast.
So you were battling the leaves this weekend, is what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was, and the sad part about it is we don't have anybody here, and the people, you have to kind of clean the one up next door and the one on the other side of you, and they're all gone.
Sure.
Well, burning the leaves, that sounds like a novel idea.
Well, Coach, you've got a fire permit, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and if he didn't, he wouldn't tell us.
well, you just can't you can't deal with the wind, right?
Yeah, you don't want to do that. I mean, if the wind's blowing good enough, your fire seems to migrate.
Yeah, it was a tough weekend. I want to get your thoughts real quick on any positive takeaways, any players you liked Saturday. We'll get to Nebraska, Wisconsin in a moment, but just Saturday, it was just a tough day for Nebraska, 34-3.
Okay. You want me to tell you what I think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, there's two kids, that young players. They're both freshmen that I think are going to be really good football players, and that's the linebacker Hausman, and is it Malcolm?
Hartzog. Hartzog.
13 the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets a little bit hurt a little bit because of his height, but he's got instincts and things like that, and I think as he gets stronger, he'll be dangerous. I think he's really going to develop into a player, and it's a funny thing. A lot of times it's the last guy. Well, let's just take this guy, or one of those kind of deals, and they end up, winning the Heisman Trophy or something. That's just the way. That's how smart coaches are. Hey, let's just, give this guy a chance, and that's what happens a lot of times. I think, But those two kids impressed me. Just as, there's other people that do too at times. Do things that. I think that Ty Robinson can, do what he pretty much, if he works with it, he can probably play on Sunday. And, there's some other people that I think have the ability, but maybe we're treated a little bit, didn't get into the fundamental stuff like they should have. And I always go back to the same thing. I think when you have kids standing around at practice, and even though, Mickey's made them move around a little bit, you still, if you work on something, you need to keep working on it. You can't go stand and watch everybody else do it. I mean, you have to understand that if you're a scout team guy, you're at an advantage because you're taking the stuff that you learned in group work from your position coach, and are able to work on that while you're playing against the varsity teams, and scout as being a scout. And that sometimes leads to a little pushing and shoving, but that's what you're looking for. I mean, that's that's kind of, it isn't really what you're looking for, but I mean, it proves that, that the guys that are the good players. Now you figure, you tell those kids, look, you're playing against as good a player as you're going to see on Saturday. Mm-hmm. You're even though it's not live, a lot of the pro scouts came in and thought it was.
Sure.
We'd have 4 stations going and people knocking the snot out of each other, but nobody was hurt, and I think that's one reason why a lot of these teams that are doing it don't get the reps of their players. Don't get whereas if you had the 4 stations, your top 3 quarterbacks are going to get quite a few reps.
Well, they'll be ready to go if they're healthy, presumably with more practice reps. Charlie McBride's with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio, a Monday with Charlie. Coach, the name today is Matt Rhule. And what do you think of Matt? I know it didn't go well for him in Carolina, but I think you probably know the name from Temple and from Baylor.
It's not Rhule, did you say?
I said Matt Rhule. Matt Rhule.
Oh, Matt Rhule?
Yes.
Oh, that's the word for today?
That's the word for today. That's absolutely right. That's the word for today.
You're asking somebody that really has no idea when it comes. Coaches are the worst guys to ask us stuff to. And ask them who you think is the better team. And every time I said who is it, I'm wrong.
No, I get it. But
but I think I think he's earned his stripes. I don't know him that well. I think personality-wise, I think that's important. And it seems to me that, just from what I've seen a little bit, that he's the kind of person that, kids would like to play for, I think, and that pro football stuff, I always look at the example of how good Coach Lou Holtz was, and when he got into pro ball, it wasn't the same, and so a lot of guys are made because they're more people, people persons than a lot of them, and pro football is kind of a cold business anyway. You've noticed that none of the head coaches ever really mention the names of any of their assistants. It's always the TV people only that do that.
Sure.
And so that's it's kind of a weird profession, I think. As far as that goes, I think there's a lot of guys that enjoy doing it. They don't have to recruit. It's all football, and that's the part that I think a lot of them, like.
Well, Coach, one of the things you're hearing out of Carolina about Coach Rhule and his tenure there was that his nature to be a control freak turned a few people off to him, where it sounds like he even had to go and part of his contract was that he wanted to go and approve all the social media posts from the team before they went out to make sure, nothing was getting out on social media that would harm his chance at winning a football game. That rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but that's just generally who he is. He's a control freak kind of guy. And tell me, is that something that is better suited to college football than it is to the NFL?
I know a lot. I mean, I've heard more about it from high school coaches who actually really don't want the kids to even read any of that stuff. I mean, even when it's not about them all the time. And, you always get some guy on that's going to say something that he has no clue what he's talking about. It came out of the air this morning when he woke up. I'm reading stuff in the paper about I can guarantee you this is going to be the next coach and all this kind of stuff. Those guys are, and so I just if you are a control freak, you've got something to learn, because there's other people involved. And just in taking my job when I was there as a coordinator, if I think one head is better than four, then I got something wrong with me. You have to trust the guys that you're working with, that they're gonna help you along the way. They're there to, that's what they are. They're there to do the best job we can all do together. And that's kind of the way it is, I think. And and if you're the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator, that you want some information from all of them. And I think we kind of split it up so that the position coach was a specialist at the other team of the position he played against. In other words, if you're if I worked out the inside plays, I knew all the inside runs. I knew they were going to be blocked. I knew all of that. And same thing with the outside guy. The secondary coach knows the passing game, and linebackers are also inside, outside. Both of them, they have to, really take it upon themselves to be a specialist. So during a game, it'll help. And especially with little things like inline stunts and things like that. And I've said this before, that I know that Tony Samuel, when I was there, I'd call a defense, and he'd say, put a stab in or put something else in it, They're going to run something, there, and you put it in, and bang, If he didn't call it, then it's not going to, wouldn't have been as good as it was. So there's different you have a gut feeling sometimes, and, about stuff. I always did. I sometimes you have to go with your gut feeling when you're calling plays or you're calling defenses.
Charlie McBride's with us on Monday with Charlie. Coach, we'll wrap up. Thoughts on Wisconsin? Nebraska's underdog by 13.
13?
13.
Yeah, let's put it this way. 13, that means, I'd say that means 6.
Okay.
Because it's 7-0 already when they come in here.
Ah.
You know what I mean? Anytime you're playing away from home, the other team give them 7 points.
Sure.
Then start betting. Because, you got good fans, you got players that are going to probably step it up an inch and play better. And so that's just the way it goes. And one of these days I'm expecting this group of guys to something that's going to explode. And
defense has been playing well. I mean, it's just they got to get some help on offense.
Well, they'll do that. I think they will. I think a lot of times when you get in the bad weather, okay, and if you work on the passing game, and you kind of set the running game back, you can't expect anything better than what you got. Nothing. Mm-hmm. You got pretty much. You didn't help your offensive linemen become better run blockers, and so that's important.
Charlie McBride's with us.
It's a matter of being, your skills. Are they developing, at the pace they should, or are they not?
Coach, well, we'll see how it shakes out. 11 o'clock on Saturday morning, kickoff against Wisconsin. Wisconsin's in search of that next win to be bowl eligible. Nebraska going to play for pride under Mickey, and he's done a tremendous job. Coach, thank you for... Go ahead.
He's done a really good job. Okay. Well, I'll talk to you after the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll check in and have fun fighting them leaves.
Good. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later.
See you, Coach. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
There he is, Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie. Coach went from, I believe, Arizona State to Wisconsin. So he was at Wisconsin and then hired from Wisconsin to Nebraska. So knows both programs very well, and good insight there on all sorts of input to make the defense better. And he's not wrong, man. Hartzog and Ernest Hausman, they have continued to grow and grow and grow and get better, and they're playing really good ball.
I mean, that one play by Hausman getting the sack.
That was awesome.
Oh, he was shot out of a cannon where, I mean, it's not like McCarthy's a bad athlete.
No.
But Ernest Hausman made him look like a bad athlete. So that I'm actually with, and that might be the one positive takeaway is there is still something in the cupboards for whoever the next coach is. The question is what does roster attrition look like next season?
Well, Hartzog's a dude that, I mean, Nebraska, and Coach was right. They found him, and they offered him, and what a get, right? He's played good ball, really good ball. Jay Moore going to join us. Get Blackshirt Jay's take on the Matt Rhule name today. Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Blackshirt Husker, NFLer, and co-host Big Red Wrap-Up, Jay Moore, with us. Jay, you been on any stakeouts today?
No, I've been working. It's no stakeouts. A little too chilly for a steak.
to be checking out who may or may not be coming into Omaha or Lincoln, Nebraska here currently. So no, I'm at the office wrapping up some stuff for the rest of the day, and then I'll just trust your guys' good sources and insights on who might be the next head ball coach at University of Nebraska.
True or false, Jay Moore was with Matt Rhule at the Dave Matthews Show.
Well, if I was, you were too then.
Well, you and I were like same area,
were right next to each other, but we didn't know it.
Yeah, well, there was some big guy that could bench press a semi that I asked if I could get on his shoulders, and he kind of looked at me funny. I'm kidding. No, we were both in the pit. I was towards the right sideline. You were towards the left sideline. Fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. We were close to the entrance of the pit on our side, so it was easy access to the restrooms and the cocktail line. So we were thinking very efficiently about where we stood.
No, there you go. He took like 8 or 9 selfies as he left the stage, and just story of my life, just on the cutting room floor, brother. I mean, I was off to the right, not pictured. But
dang it.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm not anything to look at. But good show. We'll get more of your Dave review in a second. But back to football. Let's talk offensive and defensive lines, because that's where Nebraska needs to go to work. And what's the feel in a locker room if a new coach goes JUCO? There's the portal now, but Callahan went pretty heavy, didn't he, with JUCO defensive linemen and some offensive linemen to get things where he wanted them when he came in.
Yeah, but heavy defensive line. Ola Daganduro,
good ball
Barry
player.
Cryer,
Yeah,
JUCO guys. Carl Nix is a JUCO guy. Came from San Francisco, along with Mo Purify. I think those guys went to the same JUCO with each other. So yeah, those are obviously 3 really good gets by Bill, and you got to do what you got to do to kind of solidify those things, and whether it's through JUCO or it may be through the transfer portal. I tell you what, just getting those transfer defensive linemen, offensive linemen, those guys are gold, and those guys are so hard to come by and get right away. I mean, these guys, if you are worth, you're worth a damn on either side of the ball, you're going to get like 30 or 40 offers literally in a transfer portal, and then it's coming down to NIL money, all sorts of crazy stuff, which obviously I think Nebraska has some weight in the NIL side of things, but most of these guys they go to the big dogs, just like all their other recruiting rankings. It's the Alabamas, it's the Clemsons, it's the Georgias, Ohio States, Michigans, so on and so forth, for some of those top 4 or 5 guys on the other side of the ball that might go into the transfer portal. But if you can't get those guys, you got to lean on some JUCO, and I would think that whoever this next guy would be, you'd have to go that route, and you might not be able to get him in the early signing class, but you could probably get him in the later one, and hopefully get him in the summer. And if they're academics, I guess, are in order. That's always that's a second guess when you're starting to deal with JUCO guys. Those guys went to JUCO are usually for academic reasons, so you got to make sure that everything's on par with those side of things. But there'll be some sort of dipping into the JUCO ranks just to get some more help, get some more depth, and just solidify and just become a little better, coming in this next year on both sides of the ball. I think the defensive line has progressed pretty nicely so far in through 10 games. Even though they can't get any help from the offense, but on the other side, this offensive line has struggled all year long. And whether it's Casey or Logan or Chuba at the helm, these guys have struggled to protect and give time and get somewhat of a decent run game going. And they've shown sparks at times getting the run game going, but unfortunately, you have an offensive coordinator who just doesn't want to stick with the run. He likes to throw the ball, so. They've obviously struggled. I think the play calling could help them out a little more. It just hasn't. But again, I mean, if you're able to, if these guys were all looking at maybe being in NFL camps, in the next year or two, I think this offense, you'd be able to run the ball and you'd be able to throw it more efficiently. So they haven't been able to do it, and they struggle. There are some younger guys in there, but there's some older guys who have just struggled, period, since they've been here, unfortunately. So I would expect heavily that the next guy you'd have to dip into that JUCO ranks just to get some sort of help here and expedite this process of getting better, as quickly as possible.
Well, yeah, Jay, to your point, this entire team has shown flashes of what they can be, but then, you go play a team like Michigan and they remind you where you really are. So in your mind, how far away is this Husker football team from being able to compete? I spoke last week about how if you can fix the lines of scrimmage, you could at least be a respectable team in the Big Ten, maybe crack into that top 25 with some luck on your side. But in your opinion, how far away is this Husker football team from being a place that Husker fans will actually be proud of this football team?
Yeah, I don't think it's as far as away as what the records and some of the results may show. I mean, you just look at this team last year; they should have beat Michigan, and Michigan was in the Final Four last year and won the Big Ten. So, and I know the defensive side of the ball is vastly different, and you had a quarterback in Adrian Martinez, but there's still a lot of these guys that played a lot last year are still here, and I just think you get a couple more key pieces, develop this offensive line and defensive line starting day one, whether it's Casey next year or whoever it may be. The quarterback is a huge position in the game of football. Majority, I'd say 95% of great football programs have top-notch quarterbacks. They have draftable NFL quarterbacks. And, the teams that really did it was Alabama in years past, but they had 4 guys get drafted in the first round over about a 2 or 3 year period. They've sent 2 wide receivers in the first round every year. You just go after running backs, and you don't have to have an elite quarterback when you're just surrounded by first and second rounders everywhere on both sides of the ball. So I think that's going to be an interesting situation going forward. But they're not that far away. I mean, you just gotta approach it the right way. And I'm saying they're not that far away from being, be able to go 8-4, 9-3. Hell, 7. They're not that 7-5 is not that hard to attain. I'm saying they're not that far away from competing to win the Big Ten West. I think they're a long ways away from winning the Big Ten. I think that's probably a more of a 4 to 5 year process. But I think competing for the West, you're only a couple of years away, in my opinion, from doing that. It's not going to take a whole lot. It's just understanding who you are, what you want to be, and who you're playing week in and week out. And I think this next guy will definitely do that. But it's being respectable and playing, in bowl games. We're not that far away. You just got to shore up some things, be more disciplined, develop guys. I mean, that's a spring ball in a training camp, and I think that you can turn things around rather quickly.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, what would you build your offense around? What do you think would win? What Michigan's doing? What Ohio State's doing? They've got the combo. They've got the quarterback. They've got the line. They've got the skill. They've got all of it. You look at what Nebraska's doing right now, when you look at where their line is at, and you've seen the difference a guy like Casey Thompson makes, despite the line, they've been able to win or be in some games with Casey and a guy like Trey Palmer, right? We think of Purdue. But do you build the offense around the quarterback, or do you build it around the lines?
Well, I think you always want to start with offensive line. If you have an exceptional O-line talent and exceptional O-line play, that just makes everyone better. That makes the quarterback better, makes the running backs better, makes the wide receivers better. So first and foremost, you got to build up offensive lines, and then you try to figure out what kind of quarterback are you recruiting, because that's going to kind of make the difference on what kind of offensive lineman you want to bring in and develop. Because if you want to have a QB, a dual threat guy, you're probably going to need to have, some rather athletic guys, and you're probably not looking at recruiting guys like Bryce Benhart, in the future being, 6'8". I mean, Nebraska's gone big, which I think that's fine. You have the Big Ten there are large humans all over the field in the Big Ten. You got to kind of size up, but you want athletic offensive linemen guys who can move, guys who have good feet, so they're able to pull and do things. And the biggest thing is when you're athletic lineman is when you get beat initially, you're able to recover and still get a hand on a guy or still something. Because sometimes all you need is a crease, man. You don't need a whole lot. You don't have to just pancake a guy every play. You just got to be able to be in the right place and one step here, to save you, to shield them off, then boom, there's your crease, and Anthony Grant or Gabe Urban, whoever is coming, will play next year, is off to the races. So I would start there and then figure out, your QB. What do you want out of him? Dual threat, and then that kind of, that just kind of depends on your offense going forward. So I'm okay with a pro style. I really like what Harbaugh does. I love his system. It's more of a pro style, but they have some sort of athletic element with their QB, but they just kind of line up at you. They formation you to death, and they said, good luck. I mean, it's easy to do that when you have a guy like Corum, too, to run the football, and you have good offensive line play, and your defense is one of the best in the nation. But I just like what they're about. I love that style of football. Harbaugh's been playing that style of football since he was at San Diego to Stanford to the 49ers, now back with Michigan. I just kind of like what that's about, and that would be kind of the way I'd want it modeled, but I'm not I'm not trying to be the next head coach either of Nebraska.
Jay Moore with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Good to spend time with Jay. A few more minutes. We'll get to some NFL action with Jay as well. So Matt is trying to make the case for Rick Neuheisel. Bless his heart. Not Rick, Matt's. Skippy belongs on TV and Sirius XM. Not around Washington, not around Colorado, not around UCLA. Story about Skippy. This comes from a friend that you may hear on Thursday. Skippy let the players have beer on the plane ride home.
See, that's just cool. That's cool. Nah.
You know what isn't cool? Your acoustic guitar and a turtleneck every Friday night in Boulder. Game plan, my man. Skippy's been punted out of everywhere he's been.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio.
Jay, whenever you're looking at offensive scheme, do you think about, recruiting? Because that Michigan scheme, it's great for offensive linemen, it's great for running backs, but you're going to be hard-pressed to find an elite quarterback that wants to go, hand the ball off 30 times a game. I know J.J. McCarthy was a high-ranking recruit, but I don't think he's necessarily, the top NFL talent at the position coming out here in a couple years. So with that in mind, is that something that's going to factor in for you? Because I know everyone loves the triple option, but it's kind of that same problem there of what talent are you going to get here to come run the triple option?
I think, first and foremost, you're going to get recruits because you win. Not because of the system you run. I mean, that's going to have something to it. But the fact that you're winning, and recruits want to be part of winning programs. They want to win Big Ten championships. They want to play in the college football playoff. And I know that's going to expand here. They want chances to win. I don't think it's necessarily, I'm not going to go to Nebraska, even though they play for the Big Ten title every year, because I just don't think I'll be able to develop into a pro prospect. Nebraska's had a decent amount of talent here in the last year. They probably, they'd had more if they would have, more guys get drafted if they would have won. And I think that's the first one. I mean, I'm just looking at what I would want to do as a recruit. Is you want to go somewhere you win. The more you win, the more times you're on TV, the more scouts that are at practice. That's what scouts want. NFL teams want to draft winners. They want guys that are part of winning programs. So that's first and foremost. And then, yeah, if you get a guy, you might be able to tweak, adapt, do things to his certain skill set. But again, as long as when you're building a house, you have to have a solid foundation. You have to have everything in order, and that foundation is top-notch, elite offensive line play, top-notch, elite defensive line play. And then once you have that solidified, now you can kind of start getting fancy. Now you can start thinking about what kind of floors do I want? What kind of refrigerator do I want? What kind of carpet do I want? What kind of furniture I want? And that's
hot tub, Jay. We need a hot tub.
Whatever. What kind of pool? What kind of gym do you want? What's all that kind of stuff in there? And that's what you kind of figure into your quarterback. That's your running backs. There's your linebackers. There's your DBs. But until you don't have a solid foundation of your line play, your house is going to be crap.
You know, you might be able to get by every now and then if the weather's, you know, calm and cool. But as soon as anything choppy, a storm comes, hell, whatever it may be, a storm or something, that house is not going to be able to survive. And that's what we've seen with Nebraska in the last decade is our line play just hasn't been to where it needs to play. I mean, other than you go back to the Riley years with Malik and Vincent Valentine, you know, and then maybe last year they're pretty darn good, but the defensive line just hasn't been there. Offensive line, you know, really hasn't been worth its salt. You know, you probably go back to the Searles and Jake Long and in those years with Amir. So you got to get back to that. You got to get back to that, building that solid foundation. That's winning up front. And then you figure out what else you want to do after that.
Jay, we're not going to ask you about Michigan because we don't want you to get sick on air. But we can ask you about Wisconsin. They're favored by a bunch. I'm fairly certain, held you look at the Wisconsin win or loss against Iowa. Iowa didn't have many yards, if any, but it was special teams, turnovers, defensive score, short fields, and you get a 2-touchdown win. You go +2 in the turnover margin. Wisconsin's really limping in. They got to win Saturday or beat Minnesota just to get bowl eligible. What happens Saturday?
Well, it depends on, I think, the status of Casey. You know, if he's not able to play, then okay, how's Chuba? You know, he went out of the game. Okay, then what do you do with Logan? And that's let's just say if Logan's able to go and the other two guys aren't, what are you doing with Logan? Because
he's not great either, healthy-wise.
Yeah, he's not great, but what if he gets hurt? Who else is going to play? So they are in this very sticky, tricky situation here. I think if Casey could play, and I hope he does, I think Nebraska has a really good shot, and I put a 13-point dog. But if Casey can't play, I mean, this offense has scored 1 touchdown since Casey Thompson's been hurt. That was against Minnesota. So I don't foresee them doing that. This defense, as well as they play it, it's just going to be kind of the same scenario like we saw against Illinois and Minnesota. You're going to play well enough defensively. Braylon Allen's probably going to be able to get Creasy on a couple runs because the defense is out there too long, and he's just too good. And you're looking at a 17-6 type ball game, in my opinion. I don't think Minnesota's defense, or excuse me, Wisconsin's offense is anything great. Mertz has struggled heavily this year. If Casey can play and go, I think Nebraska has a chance. But if they're relying on Logan Smothers again, and he's banged up, I just don't know what you're able to do offensively. We can't score any points. We can't sustain drives. Everyone just kind of just loads the box and just says, hey, good luck trying to beat us over top because you don't have quarterbacks can take it over top. So until we know what Casey's in, I think it's going to be a kind of a similar ball game offensively and defensively. It's just kind of the same story that we're going to see that we saw against Minnesota and Illinois, unfortunately.
NFL, real quick, your takeaway with that just wacky marathon that was Bills-Vikings.
That was a crazy game. I tuned in. It was like 27-10.
Yeah.
And then the Bills go for it on 4th and 2. He throws a pick. They could have got points, make it 30-10. They don't. Bills just kind of fight back like they've done all year and somehow win that game. You had the miss. I think Davis did have an incomplete pass on the sideline there. They called a catch. I think the Bills had 12 guys on the field at one point. They didn't get called. So that was just a wild game. But, what a good – that game that was followed up by the Cowboys and Packers game was a great game too. But I tell you what, that Bills-Vikings game might be the game of the year so far. That was entertaining to watch.
Vikings found a way, man. They were super impressive. And then are you going to buy stock in Green Bay or no way?
No way. There's no. Listen, if Aaron Rodgers had help, sure. But geez Louise, the guy has no help, and what are they? 4-6 now?
Yeah.
So I have a hard time. The Vikings are winning the North, the NFC North. I just can't foresee the Packers getting a wild card to sneak into the playoffs. There's someone from the NFC West, and they're going to get 2 teams probably in, and then maybe even the NFC East will get a couple teams in as well. So I just can't foresee the Packers unless they go on a hot streak, but they don't have enough help. They traded it all away.
Jay Moore with us. Watch him Tuesday night, Big Red wrap-up And Jay Moore, longtime black shirt Husker and NFLer. Jay Bird, we'll check in next week. Thanks for the time.
Yep, you got it. Thanks, fellas.
Good to spend time with Jay Moore, black shirt Husker NFLer. We'll wrap up some NFL and a little bit more from Paul Meyerberg on the Monday Rule, right? It's Matt Rhule Monday. At least that's been the talk for most of the show. Reminder to get buckled up. Using your seatbelt saves lives, prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make sure you buckle up. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. We are on the road Friday, final road show Friday, down at the Single Barrel, last home game of the season, as we invite you down to the Single Barrel 4 to 6 on Friday ahead of Nebraska and Wisconsin. So keep that on the calendar. Should be a good time. A lot of red down there. Not sure what the travel party looks like for whiskey, but I know I'll be eyeing a big old steak. We'll dive into some NFL, wind down a Monday with Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Big thanks to Charlie McBride, Jay Moore, and all of your input on the StreamYard emails and phone calls with Matt Rhule Monday. And we'll see where tomorrow takes us. Mickey scheduled at 11:30. It is Wisconsin week. Mitch Sherman with us tomorrow. And the Godfather, Barry Alvarez, will join us tomorrow as well. Brad Edwards this week, Searles this week, Barney this week. So we're loaded up. Excited also for a Friday show down at the Single Barrel, man. Can't wait for that. Waiting on confirmation for Saturday morning, the Single Barrel, ahead of that 11 a.m. kickoff. But that's always been a pretty good time, pretty good thing. And then Black Friday, man, noon to 2 at the Marriott in Iowa City. We are doing that Black Friday show.
I'll be streaming along with the U.S. men's national team game while we do this show, so you're going to get a chance to see me really multitask and try to watch soccer and do a show at the same time. Kind of pay attention. To the game or to the show?
To the show.
I'll be kind of paying attention.
I need you to pay attention to the show.
I'll say, have you ever watched soccer before? Soccer is made to be a sport that's half paid attention to for 90 minutes. You're not supposed to pay attention to all 90 minutes of soccer. If you do, you're a crazy person. It's meant to be background noise.
I had a buddy who went to South America to watch a soccer match, and
did he live to tell the tale?
He did, because he was neutral. But I think it'd be fun to go over to England and check out a match.
Mm-hmm.
And just be on the right side of whatever team he's hosting.
See, that's fair.
It's pretty intense, right?
Oh, it gets intense. England's one of the better spots in terms of you're not probably going to get mugged after the game for wearing the wrong colors.
Kidney.
They've really worked on that over the past 10 years or so, cutting down hooliganism. I did a whole project on it in college. But
really,
yeah. If you're worried about like getting stabbed, avoid France. Paris has had a lot of issues with issues after matches recently.
I just don't want someone putting their cigarette on me.
That's Italy. Italy, that's where you worry about that.
Okay. Well, man, look at you. Get it. Don't do this. Do we have time for Meyerberg?
Yes, we do.
One objection out there to Rhule is, what's his hunger like? Right? The guy's sitting on $60 million.
There absolutely was and has been a time for Matt Rhule where Nebraska would have been a job that he took. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I can't say for sure that is still the case right now, but I do know from a perspective of his mentality or the perspective of what it takes to be an elite-level coach in the college level, these guys don't want to sit it out. They don't want to be on Fox Sports doing a chucklehead morning show where they're laughing at clips. They don't want to do that. Most guys don't, and Matt Rhule is not conditioned to be that way. There's also these other factors. There are guys that he's worked with his entire career who rely on him. He wants to give those guys jobs. He wants to continue, feeding these guys who have helped him become the coach that he is today. So a lot of factors go into play. I don't think he wants to sit out. Would he sit out if he couldn't get what he felt was the perfect or the right job? Yeah. But I do think that he's evaluating options now to get right back into the college game. If the opportunity is right for him to get back into college, his reputation is almost peerless or impeccable. as a college coach, and I do think that it would behoove him to get right back onto the horse. And I know he'll have his opportunity. If not at Nebraska, I promise you another big-time program will hire him and not have any regret. Paul Meyerberg, that is posted. The date is what? The 11th?
October 11th, 2022.
That's Paul Meyerberg right after the Rhule firing, and it's been brought up again. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 4 on Hail Varsity. Have a good night. Thanks for the time.